His Excellency Mr. Emmanuel Macron, President of the French Republic, Ministers, Ambassadors, our host Vice Chancellor, Professor Coupe, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Bon après-midi, bienvenue. I'm honored to be your program director for this afternoon's important event, which will consider how South Africa and France can best cooperate to support Africa in developing its own vaccine manufacturing capacities. In the South African Cabinet, I have the privilege and the honor given by my President, Cyril Ramaphosa, for the portfolio of higher education, science, and innovation. The mission that the President has given me, and of course all of us, is to invest and develop South Africa's human capabilities and innovation capabilities so that we advance the African agenda for sustainable development through science, technology, and innovation. It's a mission which is aligned with the focus of our discussions this afternoon or early evening. The fight against COVID-19 pandemic starkly put us into the spotlight, especially the shameful inequalities that continue to mar Africa's grossly inadequate access to vaccines, amongst other things. It's a situation that needs to be urgently addressed. South Africa greatly appreciates our historic and extensive cooperation with France, including in areas such as education, science, and technology. We have an opportunity this afternoon to ensure that our partnership truly serves African development and eradicate these inequalities. To achieve these objectives, it has to be a true partnership, however, underpinned by values such as joint ownership, shared responsibility, real solidarity, and most importantly also technology transfer when it comes to vaccine development. Monsieur President Macron, the rallying cry of the French Revolution and the motto of the French Republic should inspire us today, I dare say. Liberté, égalité, fraternité. Freedom, equality, and fraternity. Ensuring that Africa has its own and strong vaccine manufacturing capacity will indeed ensure a world which is freer, equal, and truly fraternal. Let us also be inspired by South Africa's own motto, diverse people unite and proceed through united and concerted action. I'm confident our speakers this afternoon and your valued guidance and direction, our two presidents, will chart the way forward for us to achieve this ambition. Merci beaucoup. With these words, I then am formally opening this gathering, this high-level dialogue, and I will honestly and frankly request that all our speakers, except our two presidents, stick to 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes. I'm not going to shout at you, but when you see me standing up and walking slowly closer to you, you must know it's time to wrap up, so that we can give our principals their 15 minutes each, and they are able to talk to us. I have therefore the honor and the pleasure to call upon our host, Vice Chancellor of the University of Pretoria, Professor Tawana Coupe, to come and welcome all of us. Professor, can you please come forward? Thank you very much. Sorry. I'm not taking your minute.
I think if people didn't notice, I was just praised by the Minister of Health of South Africa. So I'm actually covered. A very good evening. I would like to make some special welcomes. His Excellency President of the Republic of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, His Excellency President of the Republic of France, Emmanuel Macron, Dr. Blaine Zimande, Program Director and Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, ministers from the South African government and the German government, members of parliament, chief executives of companies and chairmen of boards, members of the University of Pretoria Council led by our chairman, Mr. Kuseni Dlamini, who is also chairman of Aspen Pharmacare, and the executive, Student Representative Council of the University of Pretoria, distinguished guests, partner organizations and media, and all joining us here today. May I extend my very warmest welcome to His Excellency President Emmanuel Macron of the Republic of France. We are proud to host you on African soil, and I'm extremely privileged to speak to you about the University of Pretoria's Future Africa Institute and Campus, the place we are meeting today, a vibrant, collaborative place where Africa's leading researchers and scholars from across the world and from a broad range of disciplines come together to leverage the benefits of transdisciplinary research in order to address the grand challenges that face Africa and the world. To date, the World Health Organization reports 3.4 million COVID cases and rising across Africa, including 86,000 deaths. The fact that the vaccine rollout across the continent has been delayed due to a lack of resources is just another example of African lives left to be at risk or on hold, while wealthier nations hit the reset button and move forward. It is true, though, that in this global health crisis, African universities came to the party, working with African governments and the private sector. They did everything, from manufacturing sanitizers, personal protective equipment, vaccine trials, modeling of the pandemic, and much more. It is in response to multiple ongoing global disruptions that the University of Pretoria is rethinking, reimagining, and repositioning for a more proactive role to address local and global challenges. We have launched 4 key transdisciplinary innovation platforms which will enable us to become much more impactful in response to global and local challenges. Future Africa is one of those platforms. Through our world-class facilities, we are committed to excellence and quality knowledge co-creation that positively changes society. Future Africa thrives on the principle of achieving transformative outcomes through partnerships and collaborations to achieve what we could not achieve alone. In December 2018, we as the University of Pretoria signed a memorandum of understanding with the Montpellier University of Excellence, becoming the first and only Anglophone university in Africa to be invited to enter into a formal collaboration. Now, Montpellier University of Excellence in France is a wonderful initiative. It is the French government brought together 19 organizations in Montpellier University to create a superior, if you like, university to deal with global and local challenges in partnership with other universities. The French Prime Minister and the Minister of Higher Education in France launched this initiative in 2017. To date, Muse, as we call it, has established 10 official partnerships with carefully selected universities around the globe. I'm proud that since the establishment of an international advisory board for Muse, I've attended all meetings and chaired the 2022-day virtual meeting. At this meeting, the board chose 3 thematic areas for collaboration going forward: agriculture and food, environment, and One Health. In the concept of One Health, we cover both human, animal, and plant health. We are proud of our partnership with Montpellier University and look forward to more opportunities for co-creation of knowledge for mutual benefit with this university, which is as committed as we are to addressing the key challenges of our time. The future is only through partnerships and collaborations. Without that, knowledge which knows no borders and boundaries cannot impact the fate and the sustainability of our humanity. President Macron, later this year, you will host the French Africa Summit in Montpellier. I think it's 8 to 10 October. I'm pleased to inform you that the Advisory Board of Muse will hold this meeting around the same time at Montpellier. So I will be there. So Presidents Ramaphosa and President Macron, allow me to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker, without taking more time, is Professor Kwarisha Abdul Karim, who is the co-director of CAPRISA on the needs for vaccines on the African continent. Professor, over to you. And we have our deal.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished guests, all protocols observed. It is an honor and privilege to be part of this important dialogue today, and I thank the organizers for the opportunity to share some of my thoughts with you on enhancing vaccine production and manufacturing capacity in Africa. The COVID-19 pandemic has reminded us of our mutual interdependence and our shared vulnerability as human beings. Globally, there have been more than 168 million cases and a devastating 3.4 million deaths. No country has been spared. Africa has almost 5 million reported cases identified through 47 million tests undertaken on this continent. Africa experienced a less severe than expected first wave of infections. The second wave was much more severe, partially due to the identification of variants. And viral transmission continues unabated, and a third wave looms. About 14,000 viruses from 41 countries have been genetically sequenced, confirming that all the variants of concern are circulating in Africa. While the announcement of efficacious COVID-19 vaccines was met with great hope, inequitable vaccine access rapidly reared its head. By yesterday, 1.8 billion vaccine doses were administered, 68% in the top 6 countries. All these countries developed vaccines or manufactured vaccines. By comparison, the bottom 124 countries have received less than 5% of all the vaccine doses in the world. So far, 28 million vaccine doses have been administered in Africa. Worryingly, 8 countries have yet to receive their first COVID vaccines, and 22 countries have yet to reach 1% vaccine coverage. Despite 6 vaccines being tested in vaccine trials in African countries, they've had to join the back of the queue for vaccines. But Africa is making progress in overcoming these impediments through COVAX, access initiatives with vaccine companies, and the African Vaccine Acquisition Task Team. The latter is using the continent's collective buying power to help secure adequate vaccines for the continent. While there are now enough vaccines to provide a dose to 20% of the world's population, Africa only has enough doses for 2% of its population. This deplorable tenfold inequity in vaccine availability should never be allowed to occur again. What can we learn from countries that successfully secured vaccines through local manufacturing? Firstly, the critical importance of government leadership and political commitment. Secondly, long-term investments in science and technology, especially in vaccine manufacturing infrastructure and facilities. Thirdly, the value of public-private partnerships. Fourthly, access to IP, such as the voluntary license obtained by the Serum Institute of India for Covishield. Kudos to South Africa and India for leading the initiative to secure the IP rights waiver for COVID-19 vaccines. Fifth, long-term investments in training scientists, technicians, and engineers for the high-level technical expertise required to run vaccine manufacturing facilities. Sixthly, collaborations across countries and continents, like the one we are witnessing today, are essential. Today is the seminal point where the dialogue and collaboration between South Africa and France is aiming to set us on the path to achieving security of vaccine supply on the continent. The Africa CDC, through the Partnership for African Vaccine Manufacturing, together with universities and research centers across Africa, such as CAPRISA, WHRI, and the Pasteur Institutes, have an important role to play in supporting this initiative. Africa's self-reliance in vaccines is a laudable dream, one that will take some time to realize. But importantly, it will bring security of vaccine supply in the future. Building back better together with resilience and being better prepared for future pandemics will require nothing less. I thank you for your attention.
Much, Prof. That was real professorial discipline. Thank you very much. Now I call upon Dr. Boitumelo Sumete Makukutlela, who is the CEO of the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority, for her brief remarks. Wozasis.
Good evening, Honorable President Macron. Good evening, Honorable President Ramaphosa. Let me do this. Good evening to all the esteemed ministers representing the various governments, as well as all the esteemed delegates in this House. I'll be talking about health regulation and the importance of harmonization within health sector regulation. As the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority, our mandate is to ensure that all health products, that is medicines, medical devices, complementary medicines, biological products, including vaccines, as well as clinical trials, are conducted to the utmost highest level of regulatory compliance. Our mandate requires that we ensure that all the health products are safe, of good quality, are efficacious, as well as are good performing medical devices. Our role as a regulator does not end when we register a product. It continues along the product life cycle. We monitor the performance of the product as it's been made available to the public. And with these COVID vaccines, we will be playing a critical role in monitoring the safety of these vaccines. We've already implemented a Match Safety app, wherein as of today, we've already received reports on any of the safety effects that are noted from these vaccines. And we're working closely with the Department of Health, working closely also with the manufacturers to ensure that these are adequately managed. From a clinical trial perspective, if I can just pick up from Prof. Karim's remarks, we were quite thrilled as a regulator to have been pivotal in enabling that the country participates in a large number of the vaccine clinical trials that took part in the country. This was not limited only to the vaccines, but also South Africa participated in clinical trials for COVID therapies, etc. This illustrated the strength in the research capability that we have in the country, but also the technical capability that exists. And I think that country needs to be commended for that. As a health product regulator, we don't work in silos, ministers and presidents. We work very closely with the French regulator. Particularly, we've got very close relationships with the European Medicines Agency, wherein we work with them under a number of review processes. A lot of our processes as South Africa are actually aligned with the European Medicine Agency. And so we are working and striving towards creating harmonization. Quite important also is our role in the WHO programs. As we speak, we've got members of the SAPRA team that are part of the evaluation team of the vaccines under WHO. We apply stringent reliance on the WHO pre-qualification processes and also work very closely with them around ensuring that all inspections that ensure good quality products, we conduct them jointly. So as a regulator, we strive to ensure that we partner with others. Furthermore, we play a critical role in the African continent with the other regulators. Particularly, I'd like to mention the African Medicines Regulatory Harmonization Initiative, as well as the African Vaccines Regulatory Fora, where again we're working with regulators on the continent to jointly review the applications. Now, these harmonized mechanisms, they enable a number of aspects. They enable joint evaluation processes. They enable that we rely on each other's work, that we share the work we do. But quite importantly for us as a continent is to ensure that we build the capacity that's required for us to be able to efficiently assess these regulatory processes. The benefits of collaborative work sharing and reliance processes is that they enable accelerated access and efficient timeframes to access to health products across various countries. There were times when regulators were seen as barriers, but we're wanting to change that paradigm. We want to ensure that us as regulators in the African continent play a role of an enabler. And this is quite important considering the conversation we're having today. We want to ensure that collaboratively we build local capability and capacity in having our own strength as African regulators to evaluate the products that are supplied. But also it creates cohesion. In the context of today's discussion, regulatory harmonization is a critical enabler to make sure that South Africa is a viable location and destination for manufacturers. We understand as a regulator that industry, government, and investors require certainty in terms of regulatory timeframes. And as SAPRA, we're working hard to position ourselves as an enabler. And not only doing that on our own, but working with the other regulators across the region under the African Medicines Regulatory Harmonization. We want to position ourselves as an enabler so that we can support the country as it builds local manufacturing capacity. We want to ensure that we leverage harmonized as well as reliance approaches to enable accelerated access to the most critically required health products by those in the Republic of South Africa. And with those words, I'd like to thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Tumi. Can I now request Mr. Makta Diop, the Director General of the International Finance Corporation? You're most welcome back.
Let me thank you, our host, President Ramaphosa, and President Emmanuel Macron for their leadership on mobilizing partners to build resilient health system in Africa. As stated during last week's summit on financing the African economies, investing in the health sector is a priority for African leaders. It's a priority for world leaders. It's a priority for IFC. It's a priority for a lot of partners. The reason why we are here, President Macron, President Ramaphosa, is because we are committed to help build pharmaceutical capacity in Africa, including vaccine production. Also to respond to a call that many African and world leaders launched to do things differently when it comes to health systems in Africa. Our interventions today will be around three pillars. First, vaccine, helping speed the production, availability, and take-up of vaccines and treatments for COVID-19 and other vital health needs. Second, access to medical equipment. Third, building resilient health systems by creating and developing markets in the health sector. Vaccine first. Together we can support countries in Africa, including South Africa, to accelerate vaccine manufacturing on the continent. the two intervenants have eloquently explained why and give us some indication on how to do it. Timely and equitable access to life-saving drugs and vaccines across the world calls for global cooperation. And that's precisely what we are doing today at the University of Pretoria. I will let the head of state to tell us more about the discussion that was held and the outcome of this discussion, because it was done under their leadership, and specific requests were made by them around vaccine manufacturing, particularly in this country. We are also working in other countries, including Rwanda, including Senegal, on this very important agenda, because we believe that the need on the continent is such that we need to have a few areas and places where we can support the production of drugs and vaccine in Africa. We need also to improve access to medical equipment. Just this morning, we launched a new partnership with GE Health and the NISIA Bank of Côte d'Ivoire as part of a IFC 300 million Africa medical equipment facility to help smaller healthcare businesses in Africa to access finance and purchase and lease vital equipment to cure people. This was part of an initiative that we have been asked to launch about supporting medium-scale enterprises and small-scale enterprises in Africa. Unlocking access to finance can save lives now and will, in the long run, strengthen healthcare systems across the continent. Let me end by talking about creating and developing markets in the health sector. Throughout Africa, COVID-19 is putting pressure on already very weak healthcare systems, making poorer communities even more vulnerable. The private sector is stepping up to address this challenge with innovative solutions. IFC is working with partners to rapidly build capacity not only for vaccine production, but across the value chain with the goal of strengthening health system. Building a resilient health system will require increasing the testing capacity and making it cheaper. That's why we are partnering with companies to expand mobile testing and treatment units across Africa, focusing on dense urban settings where access to healthcare are limited. We are successfully piloting it in South Africa with the modular clinics in South Africa, which are allowing to reach populations which are out of the formal health systems. Our aim is to scale up this type of business model with the goal of closing the massive gap in primary care access across Africa. We could not control, Mr. President, the arrival of COVID-19 and the impact it had on our life, but we can definitely and certainly control what we choose to make of this moment, and we can choose to not only recover, but to build more and to build better. I would like to thank you, and I look forward to working with our partner to support the vision of our head of state. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Diop. I like the way you are doing your work, because also the way you are cleaning takes into account the different heights. Thank you very much. Can I now quickly, now that we have heard from our scientists, the regulator and the financier, now it's time to hear from the manufacturers now of the vaccines. Can I then call upon Dr. Morena Makwana, the CEO of our own BioVac. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Minister. Good evening to President Macron. Good evening to President Ramaphosa and to the ministers and to all the delegates that are here. I'm very happy to be here as a proud representative of a South African company that I'd like to expand a little bit in terms of a case study. We're at a university, so I think it's probably good that we talk about case studies, because we have a live case study of what is possible, not only in South Africa, but also on the continent. In November 2020, just a few months ago, the program director here being our Minister Nzimande, launched a vaccine called Hexaxim, that's the brand name. It was actually a launch of the start of vaccine manufacture in South Africa after more than 20 years of no production taking place. The last vaccine that was produced in South Africa was in 2001, and after almost 20 years, in November 2020, the first product was produced in South Africa. How did that come about? And so let's have a look at this case study in terms of what is possible on the continent. The democratic government of South Africa, soon after 1994, had a look and realized that there needs to be a revival of the vaccine manufacturing industry. That's how our company BioVac was formed. It was formed as a partnership between the public sector and the private sector, and hence Minister Nzimande refers to it as our own company. That vision, and we've been slowly and steadily putting together capability. When the word vaccines was not very sexy to many people. Now everybody knows about vaccines, and we're very happy that people are talking about vaccines. However, we've been building this industry when the buzzword called vaccines was not very sexy. Now, how did this all culminate? So we would like to praise ourselves and say we did it all on our own. However, we didn't. We had to strike partnerships, firstly with our own government that had to support us, first and foremost. We had to go to development finance institution, even our own development finance institution, to access funding. But we also needed partnerships. And what we had to look at is who's going to partner with us in South Africa and give us the technology that is very complex. After many years, I'm very happy to announce that I remember vividly doing a trip and coming to Lyon, to Sanofi, and it was in 2010, and we were negotiating a tech transfer at the time. Sanofi, we wanted this product, which was a 5-valent product. They said, no, wait. There's a better one that's coming up, which is a 6-valent. And I'm illustrating this coming to the point when we look about COVID-19 vaccines and what needs to happen going forward in terms of the partnerships that need to be struck so that Africa can be able to do that. So we needed to have partners, and Sanofi was the first to partner with BioVac, and we're very happy that last year we were able to commence production. And shortly after this year, we'll be doing a second product against a pneumonia vaccine. Now, these are routine vaccines, okay? These are routine vaccines that are important. It's important that our children get vaccines, but it's also important that the facilities get to be sustainable through routine manufacture. This is so that we can upscale when pandemics like this come. So as we look forward towards COVID-19 vaccines, I think it's quite important that we recognize that firstly, Africa has the capability. And the speaker coming afterwards will also demonstrate that we have capability. So the fact that Africa is this big black continent that does not have capability, I think firstly we can disprove that. We can also prove that we can execute. We can also execute on extremely complex product. This product that BioVac...
All right, that is the conversation currently taking place at the University of Pretoria regarding vaccine acquisition on the back, of course, of the talks between and, of course, the discussions between President Cyril Ramaphosa and the visiting President Macron of France. We continue on this. However, it's time for us here at SA Today to say goodbye to you, and my colleague Francis will now be taking over on The Full View. Have yourselves a lovely weekend. Cheerio.
We are open for business as South Africa and Africa.
All right.